Our guest this evening on Weather Watercooler is Dr. Jacob Haqq-Misra. He's a senior research investigator at the Blue Marble Space Institute of Science. He got his master's in meteorology from Penn State in 2007 and a PhD in meteorology and astrobiology in 2010. Welcome to Weather World, Jacob.
Thanks so much for inviting me, John.
It's our pleasure. So why don't we just start? Could you talk just a little bit about your time here at Penn State and how your work here prepared you for your career path?
Absolutely. So, I started Penn State. I was really interested in this question about, what kind of life is out there. And I wanted to be able to figure out, what kinds of planets are the best places to look for life. So even though I was interested in astronomy, I ended up in a meteorology department because that's the best way to learn about climate. And so I worked with Professor Suk-Young Lee in the meteorology department, who's an expert on using climate models. And then I worked with Jim Casting in the geosciences department, who understands how to use climate models to think about astrobiology. And it was a really fun time.
Well, tell us about the organization you work for, the Blue Marble Space Institute of Science. I suspect most folks haven't heard of it.
No, Blue Marble Space. We're a young company, started in 2009. I was a graduate student when we started this. I'm one of the co-founders. We're a nonprofit organization. Our mission is to explore life as a universal phenomenon and empower the next generation of scientists. And so what that means is we do research funded by NASA, NSF, and other things. It's really space, earth science, looking out for life, and then also looking inward for the future of humanity. And we have some great summer programs to get college students involved in thinking about this research.
Oh, very nice. So, and what is your specific role at Blue Marble?
Well, I wear a couple hats at Blue Marble Space. One, as the co-founder, I'm also the chief operating officer and the director of the Institute of Science. And so I do a lot of management and community building with our scientists and helping to support research projects. But then I have my own research also as a research investigator, and I study planetary habitability. This is thinking about Earth through time, Mars through time, planets around other stars, exoplanets, and thinking about where might be places we could look for signs of life.
Well, why don't we drill down a little bit into that? What are some of the most exciting research projects you're working on? I mean, give us some specifics.
Yeah, well, this is Weather World. So one example I can tell you about is, what kinds of weird planets might we be looking for that are really different from Earth, but might be places we could look for life? And so one of these cases are they're planets that are tidally locked. The same side of the planet always faces the star, and these are smaller red dwarf stars. So just like you look at the moon, you always see the same side of the moon. There's planets that orbit their star like that. So one side is in perpetual daylight, the opposite side is in perpetual nighttime. Now, the original theories suggested that these planets would not have atmospheres, that they would just freeze out on the night side of the planet. And that seems to not be the case based on our modeling. And, telescopes like the James Webb Space Telescope and others are starting to observe some of these planets and try to look for atmospheres. So this is really exciting because it's a place where we can do some climate modeling exercises to explore the possibilities and then use these next generation telescopes to actually try to look for some of these atmospheres. And then one step beyond that is look for what things in the atmosphere might be indicative of life. So it's really exciting times to be doing this work.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Now, you and I reconnected because I saw you interviewed on a PBS documentary called First Contact, an Alien Encounter. What was the idea behind that documentary?
Yes, this documentary, First Contact, is about this idea that, first contact with extraterrestrials maybe is not, them landing on the White House lawn, or maybe not even, like in the movie Contact, where there's radio signals coming, to Earth. This instead takes a scenario. What if there was, an interstellar object, a rock, or, interstellar meteor that comes past the solar system, comes through the solar system, past Earth, and we get a glimpse of it. We point telescopes at it and we find that there's technology on it. So we have sort of confirmation that we're not alone, that there's other technology out there. But this rock just whizzes by, we get a quick look at it, and then it's gone. We don't get to capture it. And so it's really asking this question: how would this change the way we think about ourselves and the way we search for life if we had sort of this passing evidence of extraterrestrial technology, but we didn't really get to engage in any communication with that society. And that's quite a possible scenario. I think it would be very transformative for us as a society, but certainly it's a different kind of outcome than maybe we see in a lot of science fiction.
Tell us about, you have a new book, Sovereign Mars. What's the big idea, and why, once we pick it up, won't we want to put it down?
Well, I started writing Sovereign Mars when I asked the question, who owns Mars? People, you think about Elon Musk and others who are, national space agencies too are planning to go to Mars. And I started thinking, like, well, what does that make sense to think about ownership on Mars? And then I quickly realized the better question is, what does sovereignty mean on Mars? Where, who is the sovereign power? What does it mean if a company or a nation is to exert, political sovereign influence? How do we decide on what makes sense for governance models on Mars? And so in this book, what I do is I start by examining Earth and what are models of cooperative sovereignty. This is, nations actually working together for a common good in a way that preserves their sovereignty, but also goes beyond it. And so there's examples like the Antarctic Treaty System and the Law of the Seas. There's one successful space treaty, the Outer Space Treaty, that's been passed. And so those are kind of some precedent that you can look for, both for positive examples, things that work, and then also negative examples, things that don't work. And in some cases, those are the better, stronger examples. Like, no one agrees on, we should share all the profits equally among all the nations of the Earth. That's a hard sell. So things like that.
Dr. Jacob Haqq-Misra, Senior Research Investigator at the Blue Marble Space Institute of Science. Thanks for joining us, Jacob.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
And we'll be back in a moment with more.